Welcome to Art Lounge.
So, what's Art Lounge? It's a space for artists, ones aspiring, or those who enjoy it, to come together and share ideas, thoughts, expression, and creation. So whether you're an illustrator, a writer, a musician, sculptor, comedian, dancer, architect, or someone who enjoys art in general, this space is for you. I'll be streaming daily with a mix of content, and in the near future, I'll be announcing different opportunities for you to participate in. So stick around. Welcome back, guys. This is going to be the project stream where you guys will see just various projects that I'm going to be working on, just personal things from imagination, things from references, not necessarily comics, but not limited to other things, or might be comics as well. So yeah, I'm starting. Last time I was doing a personal character that I wanted to include in a comic book that I was working on, but I ended up finishing it. You know, I have the full project done, and I will be showing it to you guys in the future once I make some exciting new announcements next week. So make sure you tune in Monday, same time, same place, to hear about this new exciting news. So yeah, until then, I'm going to be working on this new project that I had in mind. Something I really wanted to pump out, and hopefully I could have it done by mid next week. I don't know, at the end of next week. Don't really have a timeline. It really is more dependent on the result, how it's going to come out, and whether it's going to come out exactly as I picture it in my head and how I want it to look. So yeah, let's just start it. I'm going to be using Clip Studio Paint. I fell in love with this program after facing so many difficulties with Photoshop and crashing on me in the middle of projects that I'm working on, and yeah, just becoming really slow. I'm not knocking it, you know, it still has, it's a really powerful program. It's really good, especially if you're doing a lot of photo editing, working with images and stuff. It's very powerful. There's a lot of benefits, and I'm sure by now they've updated it, but I find Clip Studio Paint to be way more affordable. You can get it for like $30 in comparison to Photoshop, which I don't even know if you could get it and keep it permanently, and if it just turned into one of those like permanent subscriptions where you just pay forever indefinitely. which sucks. I really don't like that. I really do enjoy ownership of whatever it is, whether it's music or whether it's apps or anything really, games even. I'm not really a big fan of this everything is online concept, where if one day things go south with either the company or the program or whatever it is, and all of a sudden you lose this content, and I'm not a big fan of that. I like paying for things and then having them at my disposal whenever I want it. And that's one of the reasons why I actually like actual books as opposed to like digital content, and doing things traditionally as opposed to doing it on a computer. But not completely knocking it. It's both are really good. I enjoy doing both. Let me find my Wacom pen first before we continue with this. Alrighty. So, just like all the other streams, I like to start with a light sketch, and I'll still be kind of guiding you guys here and there during the process. Even though I really do want to just focus on this drawing, I do enjoy sharing ways for you guys to improve yours, or just giving any suggestions. And don't feel shy to post any questions or comments that you have in chat. It is going to take me some time to get used to kind of switching in between both, paying attention to the stream, to the chat, and also to what I'm drawing. Let me just bring up chat so I won't miss it. I'll be right back in 1 minute. Just gotta set it up so that I can see the chat. And we're back. All right. So yeah, just feel free to post any questions you have, any comments. Doesn't even necessarily have to deal with drawing. It could just be some general things you guys want to get insight about. And I'll be happy to give you some perspective. All right, so going back to this. Let's see. I think something that I overlook frequently whenever I'm working digitally is the power of zooming in. That's actually an advantage as opposed to doing things traditionally, but I don't even find the need to be able to zoom in. I mean, it's like moving your head closer or further away, really. That's kind of the same action of zooming in and out. But sometimes I get caught up in doing like details and I don't realize like, hey, you could just kind of zoom in, and it also makes the cursor move faster. I guess because it's not, the pixels aren't as fine. Kind of zoom in on the pixels. I do like to emulate that blue color that I use when I'm doing traditional work. It's just fun, I guess. So similar to how I do things traditionally, it's the same idea. You kind of want to sketch out, set your limits within the frame, and of course more forgiveness when it comes to this. And by this I mean doing it digitally. And really, you could do this traditionally as well. It's just having to get over the perfectionist side where you're like, oh, I don't want to waste the paper, or I don't want to waste the space, or I don't want to start all over again. Just kind of getting over that fear and being able to sketch lightly. That's the key, really, is being able to do it lightly so that all those problems aren't really present. Yeah, for some reason, I got another setup and it keeps turning off, so I gotta make sure I have it set to never turning off while I'm doing this, or at least set it up for the time of the stream. Okay. So as you guys can see, I'm just kind of using like basic shapes, and not being scared of, going over the same part over and over again until I get a line that, or size or shape that I'm comfortable with. And the more you practice this, the more fun it becomes. You'll start looking forward to this because you're like, oh, I don't have to get bogged down by details. And then by the time you're done with this, you're kind of looking forward to making details. Especially when it starts to take shape and it starts to look similar to what you intend it to look like. And just blocks, just shape blocks in order to, again, give yourself some sort of framework to work within. As I mentioned previously, you don't want to jump in and start working on details and, getting caught up in something and then realizing that, oh no, the head's too big, the body's too big, it doesn't really fit into the frame, or there's this and that I have to change, and then you have to erase it and start all over again. Now, granted, you could do it a lot more easily on a computer digitally than you could do it traditionally, but you want to learn good habits that will increase the speed of your work. And it translates. If you do it well traditionally, you'll spend less time doing it digitally, and vice versa. If you do it well digitally, you'll have the process down better when you're doing it traditionally. I think another really, really important thing, and I'm noticing it more and more, is just listening to your body when you sit down to do all this work. You want to make sure that your setup is comfortable, because you're going to be spending hours and hours drawing or illustrating or anything really that you're doing. To be honest, anything that you're doing for a really long period of time, you want to make sure that you're comfortable. So the setup should be good. Your chair should be high enough so that you're not slouching over, or your shoulders aren't hurting because your hands are way straining too much on the table. Just kind of listen and see where in your body you feel uncomfortable, and try to make adjustments to it so that they won't bother you through the process of creating things. So it's not just about the tools, it's also the environment that you're in. Going back to why I use Procreate, I think it's, aside from how affordable it is and that you could own the program, just has really cool features. For example, there's a huge selection that they have of figures, like mannequins without faces, without any sort of style to them, in proportion. The figures are proportionate, and you could just use them as guides. Some people use it to trace over, which is fine. You're learning, you're getting better, but I like to challenge myself and be able to just not trace them, just try to copy them as much as possible to, again, train the hand-eye coordination, train your ability to see details. I like that challenge. I like that, that you eventually become really good at those things. That's rewarding for nobody but yourself, really. And that's really what it's about. it's about the process, about enjoying all these things and learning all this stuff. It's actually why I really like drawing as well, is because it kind of made me realize more and more how much fun learning is. You know, getting all this, getting good results, and you know, not being complacent with where you are, and just wanting to figure out more things and digging for more information, whether it's understanding the app better when it comes to digital stuff, or understanding the mediums better when it comes to traditional work. Like all that kind of, when looked at in perspective, makes me realize, like, wow, learning is great. It's really fun. When you accept that it's a stepping stone, that it's a process, that it's not immediate results, you know, you're not going to see something immediately. You just start to take pleasure in the small things, like small achievements, like for instance, understanding a program better, or setting yourself up a goal like, okay, I want to figure out how to animate, for instance, on this program, and then by the end of the day you realize, like, I learned this and this, and I could do this and that. You might not have completed a project, but you got closer by learning the program a bit and understanding certain things, so that next time you sit down, you're not struggling with that anymore, and you could just move on to something better. So I'm getting a little too caught up in the hands. They're not turning out as good as I want them to at the moment. So I'm going to move on to another part. Another feature. So this is something also that I mentioned in the previous stream. To get better results, let's first see. This is kind of like cheating. I look at it as cheating. It's not really, but you know, having to resize things and shift them and move them. It's you know, you want to get good at noticing details, so you won't have to do that. Well, at least I do. I really want to get much better at that, so I don't have to use things like that. They have other cool features, and I'll show you guys at some point in the future as well. It's like they have perspective guides where you could, let me see if I could even pull it up right now. I haven't used it in a while, so I don't really remember where that feature is. I'll have to like do a little research to remember again. Yeah. Just going to do a little research and then show you guys later. But you have the option to create the perspective guides, and that is a huge time saver, as opposed to doing it with a ruler. You know, I don't think that's cheating. I think it's just quickening the pace a little bit. But you know, even learning it with a ruler is great as well. You know, getting faster at that. It only translates better into digital stuff, where eventually you don't even need guides because you understand the process so well and understand the space relationship between objects as guides. So for like, when I say space relationship, you kind of use an object as your guide for to draw the next object. So for example, in this case, you know, the relationship between this part of the arm and the mandolin right here. How big is the space between those two? So if you're referencing it, you know, you can compare and see this object to this object, and how to draw that space in between to ensure accuracy, to make sure it comes out similar to the reference or whatever it is that you're drawing. And that could be like a guide as well for perspective, you know, from once you establish the perspective on the box, for example. Then the next box, you could see like, okay, well, this line is going this direction on this box. Let's just do like a little quick. All right, so like, yeah, this line is going this way, so this one is right on top of it. And, you know, you don't have to worry about this because it's a straight line. So I'm going to do another box on top of it, and since this line is similar to this line, and this line is going to be similar to that. And then boom, you know, you already have two of them. They're in proportion to each other. And then from there, you can, you know, depending on the perspective, you could find the focal point. Like this, they'll eventually meet, and it's going to be towards like somewhere outside of the screen or outside of the frame or whatnot. But the guide actually helps you figure this out, and it also makes the stroke straight for you, so you don't even have to worry about it. You could just like do whatever and it's still gonna come out straight, which is really cool. So you could spend more time drawing, you could spend more time like fleshing out the backgrounds and creating the details and stuff, rather than having to like do this mechanical work. But that could be fun too. Once you, like I started to enjoy it, once you understand these principles, once you understand these concepts when it comes to perspective and so on and so forth, it becomes fun. You know, you get into a mode like I am right now and just start working on it. But anyway, so yeah, the more you practice that, the more you don't have to rely on it. And eventually it's just, yeah, it just becomes fun. And I kind of like this process of kind of balancing out all these different worlds, like the really chaotic lines and the messiness of like sketching things out, to then doing really fine detail and like, you know, paying attention to like every single crevice, every single line. It's just it's the best of both worlds, kind of. You get to do both. I'm kind of taking more of like the drawing approach to this. You know, I think with painting, it's a different process. You're kind of like, you're painting blocks of like forms and shapes and stuff. Like you're just using the brush stroke to create these like shape blocks rather than defining the boundaries of say the body of, or the arm, or whatever it is, you know, the mandolin. Like you're doing the external lines, you're defining the boundaries of it. Like it doesn't go past these lines that I'm making. Whereas with painting, you're just, you know, glopping on paint basically onto the canvas and just filling it up until it takes the shape of whatever it is that you're referencing, whether it's from imagination or from real life. So it's like two different approaches kind of. And lately I've just kind of been enjoying the more of like the illustrating side of it. I think painters even do that as well. Like some painters, they tend to first use a thin brush and kind of do the same thing as illustrators do. And whoops, what is going on here? Pencil, okay. If anybody in chat, or if anybody was tuning in later and they're not part of the live stream, if you guys are illustrators as well, share your preference. Do you enjoy doing it this style, where you're defining the boundaries of whatever it is that you're drawing or painting? Or do you prefer to start out with shapes and putting on like forms and stuff? What is your preference? And what do you enjoy about each one? I think each one has its own set of challenges and its own techniques. Which is against to say that there is no real specific technique or method. I mean, I think one of them that is most common and proves to be the most helpful is creating a sketch. So not necessarily in this style. You can create a sketch using a brush and just glop on all these forms and shapes and stuff, and then work from there. It doesn't necessarily have to be fine lines defining boundaries and stuff. Like you could do either method, and both really do benefit from a sketch style, giving a skeletal structure. Like I think that is a very beneficial method, no matter what your medium is or style is. Like it's something that really does save a lot of time. I think the beauty comes in what comes after that, like the individualistic aesthetic of each person doing it. How they define those lines, how they define the details, and what they see. Every single person has their own compass, in a sense, when it comes to recognizing things on an image or whatever it is. And that's what's interesting. I mean, that's the beauty of art, is that you get to see every single person's different approach, different take. It's kind of cool to witness that. But things like anatomy, for example, I think those are things that most people, regardless of style, regardless of medium, would really benefit from. And that's something that, like I was showing in previous streams, like if you were to look at Picasso's work when he was younger, he was doing like hyper realistic work. And that benefited because he was able to recognize details. He was able to train his eye to see certain shapes, certain lines within the body that just became part of his visual library. Just things that you recognize or that stick with you kind of, and then you translate that into like personal work, and it kind of helps you shape your projects. The richer your library becomes from all that. In the future streams, I'll be showing you guys how to draw hands. Something that I think is extremely important and can be the difference between looking at somebody's work and knowing that they really do take time to practice and get better and challenge themselves, and those that don't, or they try to hide it. Like the most common one is like when people are drawing and they don't know how to draw hands, or their hands aren't coming out well, so instead of like looking at references and figuring out ways how to draw it and practicing it in the sketchbook before really trying to nail it down on the final project, they just hide it. They either put it in a pocket or behind the back, and just doesn't look right. Like, what's the pose? What are they doing behind the back? Are they holding something that they're gonna surprise somebody with? I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. And I used to do that too. So I'm complaining about it, but that's something that I was doing as well. It's kind of how I know, that is a common thing amongst people who are learning to draw. Is like you want to feel proud of your work. You want to be like, oh, look what I did. But to get there, you're just like hiding things that you're not really good at. I know that feeling, but it's just a disservice. You end up it ends up like stifling you in the future because you just keep avoiding it. And I think that's kind of interesting because it's like a metaphor for all things in life, right? If you just keep avoiding it and you sweep it under the rug, you don't address it, you don't take the time to actually solve this problem, solve whatever it is that's making you uncomfortable, miserable, or nervous or unhappy, whatever it is. Even when it comes to like relationships, people, or how people treat each other, for example, and whatnot, instead of actually addressing them, they just sweep it under the rug and they're just like, whatever, and that becomes a disaster. It ends up brewing lots of resentment, whether it's the person, yourself, or whatnot. So it's kind of interesting how, even in art, it just kind of translates into reality. Like your process in art resembles things that happen to us in real life. You don't want to avoid your problems. You want to address them and resolve them, get past them. So that way they're not something that you need to hide. They're not something that you need to pretend that's not there. Well, the problem isn't there. just gonna hide the hand behind the back or put it in a pocket. Nope. Just shows you don't know how to draw hands, or that, or in most cases, or that you don't know how to draw pockets. What's the common saying? Life imitates art, art imitates life. Yeah, it's something that we've heard before. Yeah, I'm still a victim to it as well myself, but it is something that I keep in mind. And I try to pay attention, like, what's bothering me? What are some things that are present and make me feel anxious or frustrated, and what can I do about it? How can I solve it? And do some research, do some studying, figure out how to do it. Whether it's because of art, whether it's illustration, like, hey, I'm not really good at drawing this. Let me take the time to sit and practice it, figure it out, understand, wrestle with it, see where I can get with it. Also, I think one of the best ways to do that is by writing. I think that's something that I learned when I was younger, and I could say I'm proud of myself for it when you're younger, to recognize that and doing it. But it's not really a time sensitive thing. Like, if you've never done it before, if you never wrote before, it's not too late. You can start writing now. And I think it benefits in so many different ways, whether it's whether it's writing about things that are going on in your life, writing about things that you've learned. For example, like today I learned how to draw this part of the hand, and this is what I couldn't do before, and I learned this, and this, and just kind of writing it down so that next time you sit down, you can review it and it kind of refreshes your memory. You don't have to sit there and be like, what was it that I was supposed to remember? And you might not even go that far, and try to remember. You're just gonna gloss right over it because you got other things to remember, or you got other things that are on your mind. So if you sit and you write, you just eliminate that hassle of having to recollect and try to remember details, what it was, what specifically that you needed to remember, or you learned, or that you need to improve on. I feel like you end up running in circles, kind of like every day you wake up, you think about it, then you're like, oh, that's what it was, and then the next day you get up and then you do it again. You're like, wait, what was it again? And then you remember. So you're kind of stuck in one place over and over again, just not remembering or relearning something you've already learned. Whereas you could have saved yourself a lot of time by just having to write it down, and then in 15 minutes recollecting all of it, being like, okay, this is it. These are the things that I'm supposed to improve on. Or these are the things that bothered me. And then from there, try to write down ways to improve it. Be like, okay, every day I'm going to try to sit down and draw hands for 10 minutes. That's going to be a goal. And then you write it down. And the next day you wake up, you're like, oh, okay, that is something that I wrote down that I need to do. So you sit down, you draw for 15 minutes, just hands. This is another common problem that I've seen happen with myself, other people, is not drawing the space between the face and the hair properly. Usually it's like too small. Like the head is way bigger than, or the face is like way bigger than the hair, like I don't know, as if though it really is just draped on the skull. But hair has volume. It comes out and there's multiple layers of it, so it really adds on to the shape of the head rather than just sitting on top of the skull and just completely enveloping it. And that goes for male or female. Like, you don't want to make it too short. I mean, too narrow, not too short. You don't want to make it too narrow. Or oftentimes the same mistake when it comes to just drawing the skull. People are drawing it and then, the eyes are like really big and the ear is like here. But really the skull comes out more. Skull comes out. Like, it doesn't just come out from the side or from the ear doesn't really, like, I don't know how to explain it better, but yeah, it really does jut out more if you're having it in like 3/4 view. If you're doing it from the side. You don't want to give him like a small little skull. And there's a brain in there. It's pretty big. It sits on there and it does jut out. So that's just something to pay attention to. Don't make the skull too small. I'm kind of just doing it from imagination. I'm wrestling with it, but the idea is don't make it too narrow. Give the brain room. And then from there, you got the hair that comes out, and it usually takes shape around the skull. Like, it's not the skull, it takes shape around it, so it's gonna make the head a little bit bigger than it actually is. Anyways, I'll show you guys some other time as well with examples. I kind of just want to go back to drawing this. bit of a bummer. I want to keep going. And we're coming close to the end of the stream where I'm going to be switching over to doing traditional coloring. I'd like to continue with this more, but I will be back on Monday doing this again and throughout the week. So you guys will see this process, and I promise I'm not going to finish it before doing it on the stream. So you guys can see the full step of the way. And I'm feeling this is going to go on for a bit, just because I really want to nail down so much about this. So I think it's going to be a beautiful piece. At least that's what I'm going to be striving for. So you guys will see plenty of it on this project stream. As you can see, I'm kind of like going into detail because I want to bring out the beauty of this. Nothing wrong with it, but I do want to just stick to like sketching out a lot of this stuff before committing to like any sort of detail. Getting closer and closer to just the right proportions on everything before really sitting down to it. Sitting down and like focusing on really minute details and bringing out the face and such. Trying to capture the likeness as much as possible to make it even more of a rewarding experience. You guys could see how forgiving digital art is. Like, you make a mistake and you could just instantly undo it. image not ruined. All right, guys. I think I'm gonna end it here. As much as I don't want to, I will be back on Monday doing this. I will try to hold off and not continue on this until then. So if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. Join the social medias listed in the website. You guys can leave comments there. You can ask questions, whatever, and I'll write you back, or I'll hit you back on the stream. Yeah, stick around. I'm gonna be doing traditional coloring of Conan right after this stream. I'll see you guys in a minute.